We come together every week, bound not by a creed or mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world. Please join me in the affirmation of covenant, printed in your order of service, saying, "Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other."
Hi, everyone. Hi. I'm going to grab this because I want to feel fancy. I could probably turn it on. That's working, right? Did you see what just happened? Amplification. That's what I'm about to do to your emotional state. Don't give me a microphone. This is it's never gonna be calm. But I would like to get you guys thinking today. It's gonna be a good service. I'm ready for you all to have experienced it. I look forward to watching you think seriously. I want you to think about something in your life that you once knew to be true, but now you recognize that it is not. Something for yourself that you knew as a child or even, 2 days ago that you were like, well, this is fact. And you found yourself in a position going, oh, I was wrong. Happens to all of us. I know that when I was little, I looked at the stoplights, the signals, and I firmly believed way later in my life than I probably should have, that there were actually little people inside of them that like little doozers, Fraggle Rock, the doozers that built the little construction things, that they were in the lights and they would count the number of cars and then change the light signal so that things could go through. I was really late in life before I literally thought about how it actually probably worked, and in my own brain went, oh, well, that's it close to. It really wasn't that long ago. And realized that's not possible. But I'm still a little sad that it's not. That makes sense? Think about technologies that we've gotten in the last, 50 years or so, like the microwave. We thought it took, an hour to bake a potato. Turns out, 30 seconds. Who knew? Sensational. I grew up with a party line, so I thought when you answered the phone, you were supposed to check to see if a stranger was on there first before you could continue with your conversation. I also used to pretend that I was like a spy, and I would just listen in on conversations. I was 7. It was fine. Think about your thoughts on groups of people or identities. Greg and I were just having a conversation moments ago about, to break it down to even simpler terms, the fact that there were just 2 genders. I mean, we can look around this room and we can see with our own eyes that is in fact not true. It's a whole spectrum of them. We can see that with our own eyes. But as you're thinking about that idea, recognize that little place in your head that still, even knowing the counter-truth, just can't chew on it just right, can you? We live in a lot of those sort of gray places where even when we're confronted with the reality of something, our brains, our thoughts, our belief systems all still keep us shrouded in the illusion of that, not the reality of it. And that's a really hard place to live in, right? So just take a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, or just think about some of those that you may have for yourself. Those ideas that are true but are no longer reality. And I want you to hold that space as we continue on with our day. Everyone okay with that? Live in the discomfort of that. Hang out there. Also, Sherman, I'm really glad to see your face. I missed you. That's it. Everyone, hello, Sherman. That's it. That's my time all together. Stay in that place. Be uncomfortable. That's my request. You're welcome.
Did you know that there is such a thing as a certified cat behavior consultant? I found one online at a website called thecatcoach.com, owned by Marilyn Krieger, certified cat behavior consultant. I didn't look closely into her credentials or how they are conferred. I did read her advice, though, about why cats like boxes. She says it's about safety and security. All animals have different coping mechanisms, she says. This is a cat's way of dealing with stress. If she's feeling overwhelmed or in trouble, she can retreat to a safe and closed space where she can observe but can't be seen. She suggests that if you're adopting a new cat, bringing your cat to a new place, or leaving your cat for the day, you should set up a few boxes. It'll instantly give them controlled, secure hiding places where they feel protected and calm. This has been studied scientifically. Did you doubt it? A group of new shelter cats were randomly assigned to either receive a box or not. After just a few days, researchers reported that the cats that were given boxes recovered faster and adapted to their environment more quickly than cats without boxes. Another reason cats like boxes is warmth. A cat's normal body temperature is between about 100 and 103 degrees, which means they're most comfortable in surroundings between about 85 and 95 degrees. We usually keep our homes cooler than that. So cardboard boxes can act like a blanket or comforter, keeping their body heat close to them. I think that safety and comfort are also the reasons why we like to think and act inside the boxes of accustomed patterns, routines, habits, categories of thought. But like cats, we are also curious, and we like to explore and play. We like to discover new things. And for that, we need to come out of our boxes, interrupt our routines, form different habits, discern new patterns, and reorganize our thoughts. And that's not easy. There's a family story that I don't often tell about my Aunt Ruth, my mother's sister. That generation has passed, so there's little harm in telling it now, other than my own discomfort and embarrassment. The story is that we had gone out to dinner, me, my folks, my aunt, and maybe some others. We were up in Iowa, where my aunt and my mother's family all lived. We were at a restaurant out in the countryside somewhere, a steak place, as I recall. We had finished dinner, and we were walking back to the car out on the gravel parking lot. Amid comments about how much we'd enjoyed the food, my aunt suddenly said, Wasn't that a well-dressed black family at the next table? And after a beat, she added, and they were clean. The tone of her comment demonstrated that my aunt was struggling against a stereotype that she had learned. She was arguing against it, citing new evidence in her experience. All of us were too ashamed for her comment to reply. We were ashamed because we knew it was an unkind, unpleasant, and insulting stereotype. Perhaps some of us, like my aunt, had been taught it and had believed it. I had not been taught that stereotype, but I had been taught that some people believed that. The norm in my family was that it was shameful to believe such a thing and shameful to speak that stereotype out loud. My aunt had violated those norms. There's a lot we could unpack about that story. In my family, we had taken a step away from white supremacy culture, denying our connection with it by rejecting its norms. But our new norms were merely the norms of denial and shame. I have since come to view this as the first stage of a grieving process about losing the goodness of being white as my family gained and processed our awareness of white privilege. You probably know about the stages of grief. First we deny, then we get angry, then we bargain, then we get depressed, then we accept. As a culture, since the end of the Second World War, in which my father served, I think we've come through denial, anger, and bargaining. Most in our country are in one or another of those stages. And the leading edge of our cultural progress, the critical mass of leading opinion, now dwells in the realms of depression and acceptance. What is being called white fragility in the academy might better be viewed as a strategy to avoid depression. What is being called woke these days is a way of naming acceptance. What we saw in Charlottesville a few years back, and have seen in the conduct of so many police around the country and in so many mass shooting incidents around the country, is not by any means white fragility. There we see the forms of denial and anger that resist even bargaining, let alone depression or acceptance. It is hardly a coincidence that the thrice indicted former president, who they imagine might undo all that they deny or decry, continues to be popular. I can't even say it. With that resistant minority. When we focus on institutional or systemic oppression, we're talking about creating a supportive environment for all of us to grieve old, comfortable norms as we honestly face and accept the oppression and injustice that so-called American greatness always depended on. And I say all of us to grieve old, comfortable norms. At the same time, there's relief from the habits of oppression that we hope are happening. But everybody in some way or other makes ourselves comfortable with the norms that prevail. Right? So there is some little piece, even for those who are oppressed. There's something old and familiar, and maybe not comfortable, but familiar, to let go of. So I think that's there for all of us. It's just a little different depending who you are. There have been, for a long time, two kinds of narratives competing to define American greatness: narratives in which individuals compete to succeed, and narratives in which communities cooperate to succeed. There is the hardy, self-made entrepreneur seeking security through private wealth, and there are the trusting, concerned neighbors seeking security through collective commitment. Each kind of narrative invites a searching question. What did the entrepreneur have to do to get rich? How wide did the community draw its circle? There's truth to both narratives. Individuals have been selfless and generous. Communities have extended their support more inclusively. And as they have taken these achievements as tokens of identity, of goodness, if not greatness. That's what we humans do. Behind the pulpit at First Church in New Orleans is a memorial window, a large backlit stained glass window, a souvenir of one of that church's previous buildings, that celebrates two church members who lived about 100 years ago, Jean and Kate Gordon. The Gordon sisters worked for what we now accept as great advances in our culture and society: equal rights for women and fair labor practices. They supported women's education and work opportunities and opposed child labor and other labor abuses. They also believed in the science of eugenics. And they opposed the 19th Amendment of the Constitution, allowing women to vote, on the grounds that such things should be left to the state governments to decide. You know what that means. When we acknowledge facts like these about honored forebears, we can find ourselves hovering in the stages of bargaining or depression or acceptance of our own community's identity, coming to terms with the inevitable imperfection of human goodness. Yes, the Gordons were eugenicists, but they were clean. Clean as we are, anyway. There are other examples in First Church's long history, going back to 1833. The founding minister of that church, the Reverend Theodore Clapp, preached a famous defense of slavery and owned a slave whom he made to work in the church. And until recently, the church proudly and publicly displayed what are called the Schweitzer enamels. This is artwork by Polly d'Orlando, the first wife of the Reverend Albert d'Orlando, who served that church from about 1950 to 1980. The enamels depict the missionary work of Albert Schweitzer, using imagery in which we now recognize the stereotype of a white savior rescuing Africans from barbarism. Upon a day, this stereotype was understood as a depiction of neighborly aid, charity, and doing good. Most folks were blind, maybe willfully blind, to its racist implications. Some members of the New Orleans church remember Albert d'Orlando. Some were married by him, and some perhaps knew Polly. And it's hard to think of her beautiful artwork as saying, and Schweitzer was clean. So what are we to do? Many a church sanctuary has large stained glass windows. Every so often, a pane of stained glass cracks or breaks under the stress that the window bears, trying to retain its shape. the weight of liquid glass on soft lead causes the windows to sag and sink with time. The leading buckles, the glass cracks, and the time comes when the whole window needs to be taken out, taken apart, and rebuilt with new lead and some new glass. It's a big project. It takes time. It's costly. But it is the only way that the window has integrity and can stand again without sagging. In medieval times, it was believed that the stained glass filtered out all but divine light. During the Enlightenment, the seed time of Unitarian and Universalist faith in our country, clear church windows came in vogue. More light, pure, uncolored light. Let in more light. More recently, we UUs have rediscovered our desire for color and symbols and stained glass. Our collective cultural lenses for viewing the world are like that. Fashions change, meanings change, and when the window starts to buckle, we can choose the color and denseness and pattern of the replacement glass. We can take time for discernment, reflection, deeper analysis, and understanding. We can move towards new patterns, interrupt our routines, form different habits, discern new ways, and reorganize our thoughts. It's not easy, but it is faithful. As we take up the work of the Eighth Principle Project and also engaged with the latest round of reviewing Article 2 of the UUA bylaws that currently contains our statement of principles, we may enter fully into discernment, reflection, deeper analysis, and deeper understanding, both personal and collective patterns. May we move closer to patterns, routines, habits, and commitments that help us to resist and undo the oppressions and injustices still encoded in our institutions and social systems. And may we thus faithfully live in closer accord with love and justice. So may it be. Amen. And I invite John to come back and extinguish the chalice as we say together the closing words that are in your order of service. Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings. And may we discern, reflect, and deepen our analysis and understanding so that we may live in closer accord with love and justice.